Welcome, everybody. My name is David Eckert. I'm with the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition, and I lead the Water Action Team for this program, and I mean in general. And in front of you, you see a screen that has the name of the proposal we're talking about, the South Corvallis Greenway proposal. There's a city map to the right, which in light purple or pink, whatever that is, shows the Mill Race watershed with its existing blue line, which is the Mill Race, and then also the historic Mill Race with a tributary. And so at this point, if you can put your computer on speaker view, I would recommend you to unmute to mute yourself. Sorry, mute yourself and turn off your video picture of yourself so that you're just seeing the PowerPoint slide. And move your little viewer box down to the lower right, and you'll see more of the screen that way. Even best to minimize it. Okay, so we're going to move on here. Notice the title is the South Corvallis Greenway Proposal. This is a proposal, not an accepted project by anyone. This is a proposal, and it's a very general proposal rather than a specific construction concept. This is endorsed by the following organizations: the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition, the Corvallis Environmental Center, Freshwaters Illustrated, Greenbelt Land Trust, Marys Peak Group Sierra Club, and the Marys River Watershed Council, all local groups that have an interest in this. So let's take a short history of what the mill race is, and this is a very short history. In the 1850s, the federal government had a vegetative study of the Willamette Valley and looked at where the vegetation was, and that was later put into a GIS in the 1990s, and we can see what the vegetation was like back then, and where the mill race was a natural drainage and a floodway course, according to the vegetation. And so there was an existence of some kind of a drainage there, maybe not a stream, but a drainage. And in 1853, Joseph Avery, what we know from Avery Park now, built a dam on the Marys River, up where you can see it in red and white on the lower left, and then also had laborers take the drainage area that was there and turn it into a deeply incised trench. And it ran down toward then the Willamette River, and at the mouth of it, of the mill race, built a sawmill, and the mill and the reservoir from the dam ran the water through some sluice gates and ran the mill for the sawing the wood. So here's this picture of the second dam. This is not the one Avery built. This is a later dam, and you can see it was used for recreation by dogs and people. And this is not the sawmill. This is when it later turned into a flour mill, and that's right along the Willamette River. And there's still edifices from that, but the flour mill closed in 1938. Freezing, okay. A little known piece of history is that the first OSU U of O Civil War was not a football game. It was a tug of war. It was in the 1880s. I believe that's what it was. And every year they'd go between the Eugene mill race and the Corvallis mill race. And here I have OSU pulling U of O in the water. Actually, I made that up. I didn't know which team was OSU or U of O, but I'd like to say OSU won when we have this 1915 picture. And look at the boats in the mill race. This is a floodplain map. That's hard to say. From the 1996 flood, which was not even a 100-year flood. It was something slightly under a 50-year flood. But it was whatever that color is, tan, I will call it, colors are where it flooded. The Marys River and the Willamette River flooded. And notice that water came across South Corvallis along the mill race toward the Willamette, and water came up the Willamette toward 99. and meeting at that circle at 99 where mill race goes under. We will come back to that. That is a big deal. So let's look at this concept proposal. Again, this is only concept, no details whatsoever. In 2018, Jeremy Monroe, a fish and wildlife expert, proposed, and he lives in South Corvallis, proposed a mill race corridor concept, and linking downtown to the Marys River crossing up near Avery Park. And it was a brilliant proposal. It hit a whole bunch of walls and slowed down after the initial excitement. And so in 2021, the Corvallis Sustainability Coalition worked with Jeremy and picked that up again, but we made a slightly reduced version of it. We're only going from railroad tracks to railroad tracks. And we divided the mill race into 4 corridor segments and eliminated 2 from this proposal, which we'll go over. We eliminated the county and the downtown, and county and the downstream corridor section. You can, so it's only focusing on the middle corridor from the south end of H&V Railroad all the way down to the Avery Street Railroad line, crossing 99W. So we know for this, and this is the first question everybody asks is, well, when can you finish it? Well, we're talking about a long game, a minimum of 10 years. That's an optimistic view of 10 years. And it has to be in the city's master plan, the city's capital improvement program. It's a long game. This is not a quick fix. This is a big win over long term. And also, in order to make this concept that we're going to propose work, there has to be diverse solutions. There's no one fix. Land has to be purchased. The city needs to make planning variances with landowners when that land gets developed along the mill race. There has to be all kinds of negotiated agreements with existing landowners. There has to be, the city needs to reclaim right-of-ways that the city's not using. There need to be land swaps, and there need to be some code changes. So there's no indication that this is going to be simple or one, it's not a one-trick pony. Also, we have to have diverse funding sources. There's no sugar daddy here. Yes, the city has to fund part of it. ODOT needs to fund part of it. The county has to weigh in. There needs to be private funding. There needs to be in-kind donations, and there needs to be agency and foundation grants. All of this mixed together into a big pot. And the collaborations have to be there. The city, the county, the state, like ODOT, and agencies of all kinds, nonprofit organizations, landowners, individuals and businesses, and others that I'm probably not thinking of right now. But it has to be a collaborative event or it won't happen. And there has to be multiple layers of environmental regeneration that occurs to make this work. We need to regenerate the soil, the water quality, the fish refuge that it was and still is a little bit, but needs to be a lot more. The bird habitat, terrestrial animal habitat, and the native plants in the area. And like I said, this is a fish refuge. It's the first fish refuge or refugia for fish during floods of the Willamette and Marys River from that confluence. So when fish are really fighting the currents in the Willamette, they can come up the mill race. They do that now, but it's a polluted mess and it's hydrologically totally messed up right now. It can be regenerated. We also have a huge problem in South Corvallis with segregation. It's maybe not the segregation you're thinking of, but it is segregation caused by 99W. It culturally, it's a barrier between ethnic, economic, and access issues from the east side to the west side. And this issue is being addressed federally, but we need to address this locally. It is serious and it is not talked about. So we need to connect it, and we are proposing that we connect it at the mill race. It needs to be connected in multiple places, but one of the very best places we feel it can be connected is at the mill race. where it crosses 99 in the red and the mill race, in this case, in green. And this will help social equity culturally, economically, and with environmental access. In terms of transportation, I know that you are all aware of the problems that we have. We feel this proposal will have a significant impact on improving safety on crossing 99. So from flooding, this is not talked about. This is like the worst place for flooding, the greatest point of danger in all of Corvallis is right at where the mill race crosses 99. The mill race is considered a rapid response stormwater conveyance system, and it is when there's not much rain. But when there's when there is a lot of rain, it is not a rapid response stormwater conveyance system. In fact, just the opposite. It is a flood zone. So the time to act is now, and let's figure out why that is. One is the 20-year urban renewal district that we have. There is money here, and there is impetus, and there's energy, and there's a will to make changes. This is the time at the beginning of this district era to make changes. And this is a huge, huge issue we need to take advantage of. Second, the wonderful Eric E. Austin Memorial a multimodal path that's memorializing this wonderful South Corvallis resident who was killed on 99, crossing it in a legal area. This is a wonderful path that was put in. It is a north-south only path, and it's a small area, but it's a wonderful start to a much larger project. And we propose that part of this project be the South Corvallis or SoCo Greenway. So this is a north-south one existing along the mill race so far. Another wonderful path that's being proposed and already has $500,000 in funding from ODOT is the Tunison path that'll go along the railroad tracks up from the Tunison Firehouse up to Avery Park. And that by Avery Street, and that is another north-south path. And notice that's another north-south. So there's two north-souths. So remember we talked about the segregation is east-west. But if we add a mill race corridor in here, that is the east-west connector there. That does not take you on roads. And we think that this is what's going to help us on these issues. Another thing to consider is that ODOT, or Oregon Department of Transportation, is now in the middle of a 2-year South Corvallis facility plan for 99W in South Corvallis. They're asking for every person in Corvallis right now to make recommendations, and we recommend you make this as one of your recommendations, the South Corvallis Greenway. But the time is now and before the end of this month, actually, to make your submission. Also, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Administration, is proposing a new national flood insurance program for Oregon, which would preclude funding redevelopment in floodplains. Well, let me tell you, along the mill race is a floodplain, and that's going to have a huge, huge impact on redevelopment. And that will benefit, a greenway will be a good answer to this program right here. And so we need to grab, while this program is in place or going to be in place, we need to grab this opportunity. This is a moment in time. And finally, I know you are all aware that Pete Buttigieg was in town yesterday with Representative DeFazio and meeting with Mayor Traber. And they were on 99 talking about the proposed federal transportation fund guidelines and new safety procedures they want to put into place. And guess where they met? They met on 99 right next to the mill race. They were right there. Now, my question is, did anybody talk about the mill race or the flooding right there? I know they talked about transportation safety, but flooding is a transportation safety problem. And I hope they talked about that, because let's take advantage. Buttigieg is a great transportation director, and we need to take advantage of these funds, these massive amount of funds that are available, and we can do this. DeFazio said we need new solutions, not the same old tired solutions. We need new ones, and this is a new solution. So the time to act is now. Let's take a teaser tour. This is not an extensive tour. We'll talk about an extensive tour later. But a teaser tour is that we broke it down into 4 corridors, like I mentioned: the county corridor, the upstream corridor, the middle corridor, and the downstream corridor of the mill race. And you see this overlaying the 1996 flood zone. And if you look at that, you'll see flooding not only along the mill race, but it causes flooding along 99 up and down, mostly up. So the county corridor, which goes from the Marys River down by the Boy Scout Lodge and the former Marysville Golf Course up to 8 Allen Street, is not a priority on this proposal at all, because that is all private land and it's in the county. So we lose a lot of opportunity there. And so we're not really talking about that at this juncture at all, or planning on that. It's a beautiful section, but it is private property and off the table. Now let's move. So I'm not going to focus on that. Let's move to the area on Allen Street crossing and the railroad crossing, where the proposed Tunison bike path will be. And look at the mill race with the blue line. That is public right-of-way. It's a narrow public right-of-way. It is way too narrow, but it is an existing public right-of-way, which gives us an inroad into a greenway, a true greenway. And that goes all the way to 99. And you see the shopping center on the right that includes Sharon's Cafe and a resale store, the Mother Goose resale store. And in back is the Corvallis food bank. These are quite old buildings. They were early shopping centers. And it's been owned by the same owner for a very, very long time. And I want you to look at that red line there. That's just to the lower right of the blue line for the mill race. According to city and county maps, and I can't guarantee they're accurate, but the ones that we can access by computer, that is the right-of-way, not the tree line. And let's look, well, we'll go back to that. But this is what the upstream corridor looks like. It's kind of beautiful. It's got a lot of invasive plants in there, which I don't like, but that's relatively easy to change. But it's got a lot of trees. You see the creek in there. It's not a creek, it's a waterway. But it's deeply incised, and that's another issue itself. Now, here is where Buttigieg and DeFazio and Mayor Traber met by this shopping center right here, which is immediately adjacent. There's Mother Goose right there, resale. And there's the side of Mother Goose. And here's the access way back to the food bank. You see that red line? That is what at least the city's map says is the city's right-of-way. So the pavement is there. When that property becomes up for redevelopment, and it will at some point in with urban renewal, probably, I don't know, I can't say. It's private property. You can do what they want, but there will be money to redevelop that. And the city needs to get that right-of-way back and turn that into the Greenway right-of-way it is supposed to be. And they can consolidate all that development with reduced parking. So let's look at the bridge. Did you know there's a bridge over 99? I mean, a 99 bridge over the mill race. Most people have never known it's there because you never see it. And we'll go over that in a second. But this is underneath the bridge. Raise your hand. I won't see you, but raise your hand if you've ever seen underneath that bridge. All right, one. Okay. All right. That looks like a lot of space until you have the Marys overflow and the Willamette River back up, and others water coming in. I'll explain to you. So that's what is a flat, straight, non-bridge. Well, it's a, you know, it looks like a bridge, or it acts like a bridge, but it doesn't look like one. And that little space. Now, underneath the bridge is kind of interesting. First, I put some stars down there. On the lower left is a full garbage bin. There's always a lot of garbage, smelly, awful, and dangerous, sometimes garbage down there. That's not good. This is dry now during our drought because this area is elevated from the ground on either side. So water has to come up to get through there or get through the rocks. That's not the way it's supposed to be, really. But then you see these other four. Those are stormwater inlets. The two on the left come all the way down from the Marys River Bridge, the 99W, and they're not city storm drains. You won't see them on the city maps. These are ODOT storm drains, and they drain the street and the buildings just on either side of 99. So it comes down a half a mile on both sides and enters right there. It comes out at a horizontal to the flow of the water. And on the right, it comes all the way down from Kiger Island Drive. How many people know where that is? That's a mile and a half away. That's a mile and a half of storm water coming down a major highway and all the adjoining properties. That's a lot of freaking water. It's not as much as the Marys River or the Willamette when they hit this point, but they all hit this point at once. And with the pressure from the river, the water can back up the storm drain and flood the areas up away where it normally wouldn't flood. So here I am standing on there. With me standing there, it looks like, oh, that's a lot of space. Not until we have the floods. Then it's not. Then it's a holding area, and it backs it up. And here's another picture from another angle. And look at, they're across from each other. I don't know about that engineering there. Now let's look at how narrow the current right-of-way is. We're standing over. Oh, by the way, these are wonderful pictures by Jim Stratton. You see his name in the lower right. And we're looking from where CrossFit is across the mill race over to where the Mother Goose is. And you can just see right through there. So it needs to be more. Okay, we're not going to focus on that too much. That's the upstream corridor, but the middle corridor is our primary priority, meaning not just now, but now. We have an opportunity here now to move this baby. And this middle corridor goes from 99 and goes to up to the the northeast toward Crystal Lake, crosses Crystal Lake Drive, and goes to the railroad tracks just on the south side of H&V. And this, we have a great opportunity for making a wider Greenway and start proposing a real corridor that's both for the ecology and for people. And so let's go into that. The first place we come to is it crosses 99 is Allied Movers right there. Look at where that portion of a red box is there, and you see the building inside and the trucks and everything. It's private property, so we're not talking about a takings at all. Don't anybody think we're thinking that. But we're talking about negotiating. Look at it in a floodplain. Can you see the building in yellow, and then you see the tan flooding over that area? Go back and forth. See there and there. That baby floods, and that's not even a 100-year flood. So that's not a great place, the best place for a moving place. In fact, let's look here. How would you like to be driving a truck and pulling out and turning south onto 99 there? Is that a good business plan? We're recommending the city negotiate something with Allied for a better site for them and turn that into a win-win for both Allied and for the city. And I think the city is already thinking that way, I hope. By the way, can you see the mill race? Okay, closer look. Okay, so where is the mill race? Where is it? Can you see it? It's right in front of you. Where is it? We're closer. Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? Can you see it? Where is it? Can you see it? Can the police car see it? Can anybody standing in the middle of the road, like Jim was crazy enough to do, see it? Well, you see the railings, but otherwise, if you don't realize those railings are over a waterway, you'd have no idea and no interest or care or even think about, you know what they should do? Well, there's not even a sign that says the mill race there. Nothing. There's nothing to tell you, and yet this is the most flood-prone place that causes safety issues in the city. And speaking of safety issues, here's one of these crossing zones. How many people have crossed by one of these? These are freaking crazy. They're very scary. Now, you might say that the cars will stop unless you've gone across and you know the cars don't always stop. In fact, generally don't. In fact, if you're inside on the crosswalk, this is right next to the mill race, you can be there and you can push the button and you will not know if the flashers are flashing because there's nothing to tell pedestrians. So you're going on faith that all 4 lanes will stop. Well, and 2 of the people who were fatally injured crossed at one of these. They need to go. We need to have something better. We need a new solution. And so let's go down a little bit. Let's go, I believe it's called the Green Door. Is that a green? I think it's Green Door dispensary. And let's look at that. This is just down, you see where the mill race is and where it crossed. It's just down, it's a little triangle, privately owned. Again, nobody's asking for a takings, but definitely a negotiation when the time comes, maybe 10 years from now. But it's a strange triangle. And it's right next, this is this wonderful city sign, or maybe it's ODOT sign, about a public urban corridor and what you can't do there. But you know, that area also floods. That's a flood area. And it's all paved and it's all one little tiny building, you know, and all the rest is a lot of pavement for only a few parking spaces, actually. And that would be a very interesting site to negotiate. So let's go down to Bridgeway Avenue where the substation is, turn right, or turn to the east, I should say, depending where you are. And we go across the mill race. Now you know I think that's the mill race because the city put a sign there. It says the mill race. And now you say, okay, that's the mill race. It's kind of got a nice arch of Greenway. I love that. With tree in the background. It gives it's like a view shed. It's like it's an entry point there. And a little closer, it's one of the nicer entries to a neighborhood. And when you go upstream now, you can see, oh, but it's all dried up. It's because the hydrology features are all messed up here, and that's a whole different discussion. But it really dries up in the summer, even though it flows a lot in the winter. But that's looking upstream. That's looking downstream. And below that, by the way, is the hyporeaic zone, meaning below the flow, and that is where the waterway still flows under that in the gravels there. And if there were lamprey can live down there. And we believe there are. And that was just taken a couple of days ago by Jim, the picture. So it's actually quite beautiful. Almost looks like a pathway in the summer. But now we want to look across the mill race from the Green Door dispensary and see those 2 red lines that are under the trees. Well, the left red line is where the normal right-of-way is. But we're going to show you that between those red lines are an additional right-of-way that the city cleverly and smartly negotiated when these houses on the right were put in. I think that's one of the very nice, wonderful things the city has done with new development and can continue to do is continue this pattern. Because look at that. That lawn there is existing city public land right of way. And that is exactly what we need. So when you say, what's our proposal? This is our proposal conceptually, not on what it will do, because we would like to improve the ecology, the whole environment, and on the outside rim of it, away from the mill race, but not in the immediate right of way, but in the edge of the right of way, have a corridor for a multimodal path with non-motorized vehicles. I mean, for pedestrians and strollers and bikes, etc. So we had that one nice corridor right there. What is right across the street from it but a barrier? There is a house that was built many decades ago, I think before it was even in the city. I think this was county land. I think it was built before 61. I'm not positive, but I think so. And that house is there. It's a rental house. It's 100% in the floodplain. And guess what? It's for sale. Has anybody on this Zoom just recently got an inheritance that they want to do something good with? Could you please buy this and let us tear that house down, and we can find housing for the people there that are renting it, and do all the right things. But the right thing is to take this house out of the floodplain. It's 100%. It's not fair to have people, especially low-income people, be in the floodplain. That is not kind. It is not safe. It is not the nice thing to do. Wait, there, look at the flood. Look at where the X is. Look at that flooding, right? Look at all around it. It goes all the way up to the end, not just that one, but the one next to it. That is not nice to people to have that. And we could have something very nice there if we negotiate. No land taking at all. But let's thank you. But let's find a way. Let's find a way to buy that property and find housing for the people who are in there, and turn this into a corridor. Now we have what's called this is the house from the mill race side, and notice this is a riparian. This is not a path or a trail. This is a riparian working strip, a very temporary wood chip strip that is laid down when we're doing some work. That's all on public land. The public land starts 3 feet from the side of the house. That is not fair to the house. That we need to have that wider one, and this will return back to a natural state. This is while we're taking out the invasives and planting natives on the city right away. So that strip is 100% on the city right away. Now look here, we have one really wonderful person in this town who wants to remain anonymous and know it wasn't me, and who we notified that this piece of land 2 years ago, I think it was coming up for sale, 2/3 of an acre. You see where the barrier house is right there and below it, in the mill race on Bridgeway. It's 223 Southeast. This wonderful gem of a person purchased that land to be protected and to be part of this Greenway. And those of us who are working on this were crying. We couldn't believe it. And so we have been working on this, and we have so it's been saved, and we have added 11 tree species, 4 native shrub species, and a 30-foot wider riparian buffer already. Now they need to grow up, but this is what we need. And on the outside of that, put the transportation corridor. So here is the working strip on the mill race side of that same property. Look how beautiful that is. We took out a lot of invasives, a lot. There's still more to take out. In fact, we're going to do that tonight if anyone wants to come over at 6:30. And in November, we'll be planting a lot more natives in there, and that working strip will gradually just become part of the natural area. Now, next to that is a private land owned by a wonderful series of families, And that will come up for development at some point fairly soon. And what we recommend is you look at this, look at the floodplain, and look at the land that's left. See, back here and back here. And we're recommending that the city negotiate with the landowners with a variance. So if they give more right of way along the mill race, that they can have development opportunities on there that may not have had otherwise, but will not be a problem with floodplain. And then that, you notice the 223 Southeast Bridgeway below it, that will give a direct connection to Crystal Lake and to the Eric E. Austin Trail. That, bingo. With good negotiations, a little bit of cash, we have this easily. And that is a major part of our proposal. Here is the mill race as it crosses at the bend on Crystal Lake Drive. You can see the sign the city put in, and so that's an excellent thing the city did. Crosses there. There's one of those, what I consider problematic crossing signs. They're better than nothing, but they are still very dangerous. Crossing there, and that's where the Eric E. Austin Trail crosses right there. And going up, and this is a highly used pathway. It's only been in a few months, and oh my gosh, it's just used so much, but you're dumped out on Crystal Lake Drive, and that's a scary road. Would you want your 8-year-old child riding on that? I don't think so. So here is where this was. The picture was before the Eric E. Austin was put in what said to the city property. Whoops. And there's the mill race to the left of that, and called the Aurora property to the left. And look at those. That land on the left, we believe, could be negotiated by the city in a very, very positive way for both the owner and the city. We believe there's a real availability. That's all 100% floodplain, unbuildable. City designated it unbuildable. And so it would not be a problem for the landowner if there was a good negotiated deal, not a takings. And above you is, on the top is the railroad. There's me on the new path right by what was the former railroad that went in there. You see downstream of the Austin Path through an underground pipe on H&V, and upstream of the Austin Path toward Crystal Lake. And so that is the end of that middle area. To go downstream, well, no, to show you, that's going backwards, that's the Aurora property, and really ripe for really some good work. Downstream, starting at the bottom of that dotted, dashed red and blue line, is the where the downstream portion starts, and it's right by where I was standing. And that's all underground, where it's red and blue dashes, all underground. We are not considering this. We have eliminated this from our proposal. We would love for very, very long range, when there's new development, to consider doing something here, but we took it off the table for now because that's too difficult to work on right now, in our opinion. But it will be for the future, maybe a 30-year plan. And so above that underground portion, it comes to daylight, in the blue again, goes to the Marys River. And that is a deeply, deeply incised trench, very deep, much deeper than it was upstream. And I called this the Little Grand Canyon of Corvallis. And it's right next to the BMX park. And this has the direct connect to the Marys River. To give you if you're in the BMX park and on the left, you see that edifice. I really have no idea what that is, but everybody knows it who's been there. So that's the marker, landmark. And you can look up back to CV, back where it's, and you look over to your left, and that's where the Mill Race Canyon is. And it is a true canyon. Interesting place to be. And then if you, at the same landmark, and now looking north to the Marys River. You can see where it is, and that's very interesting down there. It was previously very unsafe to go, but it's getting a little safer now. And so anyway, that's an area that is for another discussion. So what's ODOT's role? ODOT really has to be a player in this. Without ODOT, this will have some significance, but not the significance it could have. And we have met with ODOT. We gave a presentation to ODOT, and we have two of their consulting landscape architects took a tour with Jeremy Monroe and myself, and we spent a couple hours with them and had a good time. So look at this map again of all this flooding right around ODOT. And some of that, you know, is because that's the way it is. But most of that is because the way humans have engineered 99 and the mill race and the mill race crossing. So most of the flooding is engineering, and there's a lot of plans for redevelopment of the flood-prone areas. And if you build in those floodplain areas, you simply push flooding elsewhere in South Corvallis. So just saying, oh, we can build in a floodplain is not an answer, because it makes someone else flood. And that is not a good answer. So let's reduce that flooding. So why does it flood? Because as I mentioned before, but this graphic tells you that it floods from 4 different directions, often, not always, but often at the same time, and hits this one spot. And it pushes it back in all directions because they're all pushing on each other. And in 1996, an employee of the South Co-op near Chapman told me that the water was gushing out of the manhole cover in their own parking lot 6 to 8 feet in the air, like a geyser. That's a lot of head. Comes down the Marys River to that one spot. It comes up from the Willamette in that spot. It comes from Kiger Island in that spot. It comes from Chapman Place in that spot, and comes right to here. And I would not be alive. I literally would be killed if I was standing there. So what we're recommending, and this is conceptually only, this is not a design, so please don't go there. An arched bridge of some sort that goes under this. We have an example of how this works 1/2 mile north of the mill race along the Marys River, going on the bike path going from skate park to Pioneer Park. And it's been designed in a way that it works. There's been no problems whatsoever. And even when it floods, the Marys River floods, there have been no injuries that we are aware of, that we've been told about. And so this will be a little harder to do than it is down 1/2 mile away, but it can be done. And it will take vision, and it'll require a new solution, just like DeFazio was asking for. This is the keystone to the whole proposal. And ODOT has told us that the only way they'd consider this is if Corvallis wants it. Corvallis has to want this to connect east to west. So what else does ODOT need to do? They need to control the stormwater coming from the north and from the south to this area. And they can do this in their new plan. It is possible to do it with stormwater mitigation techniques. So this is not the city's issue. This is ODOT's issue, but the city needs, and city meaning not only the government, but you and me and all the organizations have to really promote this to ODOT. So how do you reduce it? Well, we need to bring in some hydrologists, and I know at least one hydrologist on this right now. It needs to be analyzed because it's a complex issue, And it can be done. I'm confident of that. And so is Jeremy. We've talked about a number of options, but there has to be a hydrological study of the flooding of the mill race. And the engineering has to come from that hydrological. But the one thing we know we need for sure is more land. Without more land around the mill race, we are hampered and can't do it. And this is our last chance within the next few generations to do anything about it. Otherwise, we're going to spend a lot of money on a new 99 and we'll have the same old problems. So the existing infrastructure requires new ideas if we want to protect people, community, and environment. And this is, we feel, one of the best ones. What's the city's role? All of these. It has to be in the comprehensive plan, has to be in the capital improvement program. It has to be, the city has to use planning variances for landowners around it. We do have to do some code changes. The city does need to purchase some land. The city needs to swap some existing land. They have to negotiate an agreements of different kinds, and they need to reclaim and expand existing right-of-ways. And what's your role? You need to explore the mill race, know what the mill race is. Visit this website I'll give you later, www.millrace.icu. It teaches you the history of the mill race. You have to register for a mill race tour. I'll tell you in a minute. You have to encourage your friends to do all this. You have to encourage endorsement from your organization for this proposal, and talk to your city councilor about this. Say you want this. And also now on a deeper level, join the water action team. We work on the mill race. We're working tonight at 6:30. We work on the mill race. Please join us. Give input to ODOT. Without your input, they're not going to do anything. And give input to the city's South Corvallis plans. Without your input on this, they're going to go alternate directions. Help with land purchase. If you know anybody who can help on these land purchases, please help out. Give input for the city capital improvement plan and the city comprehensive plan. Again, we're endorsed by all these great organizations, and we would like to have more organizations like ones you belong to. Now, for questions, we'll have questions in just a second, but if you want to give questions in writing to me, please email me at this address, which will stay on the next 3 slides. Today, we're going to ask only for questions, no comments. But do send me your comments and we will work on those comments and get back to you. Do register for a tour and follow up with real action, and talking to your counselor and other people, and all these things are real actions. Don't just think you like it. You have to do something to make this happen. So volunteer, join the water action team, come tonight to a work session, email me at this before 5 o'clock. So at 5 o'clock, I'm away from the computer. Before 5 o'clock, email me and I'll send you the location if you need to bring any tools. So now we're at the last slide. And so I'll take a few questions, and Annette will help me out because I'm not good at doing this. So in the meantime, visit write down this, the mill race website for the history. Go to our website at sustainablecorvallis.org and email me. Okay, Ned, how do we do this on questions?
Well, I think we're going to need to see people if you want them to raise their hands. So you're going to need to stop screen sharing unless you want people just to...
I do want to do can you handle it?
Which?
Getting questions. No?
Okay, you don't want to stop sharing your screen?
I want people to see this for at least the first minute or two.
Okay.
So they can write it down.
Well, then I would say just unmute yourself and speak up.
Yeah, so you have to unmute yourself. First one to talk wins.
Hi, I'm Brenda, and I lived in that area on Edging Drive. I actually had a little house that I sold there. And anyway, I love this area. And I'm wondering, is it possible for you to put the slide back up that showed the organizations that endorse this, just briefly?
Right there. There you go.
Okay, I want to just grab a picture of that. Thank you. Beautiful presentation.
Thank you. Okay, next person.
Oop, I didn't get the picture.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you.
Got it?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Okay. Next person who wants to weigh in with a question.
Just jump in. Don't be shy. You must have questions.
Bob, I know you have one.
Oh, somebody's started to talk. Go ahead.
Mary Beth Sinclair. I just wanted to say that in 1996, I was in Avery Park and there was a gentleman trying to drive his VW Bug through the water, and he ended up tying it to the telephone pole opposite about where the train is and swimming away. And,
Oh my gosh.
I mean, the water was high. People were kayaking around the South Co-op. So
Yeah.
just
Thank you.
It was
Most people now weren't here and don't know, and that wasn't even the 100-year flood.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, next.
I'll
Well,
just comment on that 96 flood. I lived there and I could not drive to work. And I was always so scared to walk over the railroad bridge over the Marys River. And I had to walk to work that way. And it got me over that, that fright that I had for years, because that was my only way to work. So.
Good.
So
Next. Yeah.
Back in the 70s, I was a student at Oregon State, and there, at one point during the winter, there was a river running. I think it was just at the tail end of where the locomotive is, where you could not drive through there. And that wasn't a particularly bad year or anything, but you couldn't drive down that road because it was literally a river running across the path.
The river runs through it.
Yep.
So David, here's a question that was in the chat, and that's definitely an option for people if they don't want to speak up. It says, would you mind sharing the contact info for endorsing the project, which you said was due at the end of the month?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have that. I already sent mine in, and I'd have to look up an old email, and that would take me 15 minutes to find
Well,
that.
we can.
So here's, I'd recommend calling the city's planning department. James Feldman is our contact person through ODOT here, but I know the city sent out this information, so you can call either the planning department or the public information officer for the city.
And also, if you're on the Sustainable Corvallis Google group, we can send it out through that. And this is feedback on the ODOT. I forget what they call it. ODOT plan, is that correct?
I think it's South Corvallis something plan. Yeah. Yeah, good question. I wish I had done that.
This is Nancy Baumeister.
Hi.
And this is a little bit, I don't know, going forward in time, but for California, the prediction is both more drought and simultaneously more severe flooding. So it'll be drier overall, but when it floods, it's even bigger floods. And my prediction is that what's happening in California is heading our way. And like the fires, for example. So I just wonder if I think about that we may be in for more severe flooding here in Corvallis in the future. So it's smart to plan for.
Yep, you're not alone in that concern.
Yeah.
Well, and here's a message in the chat that said it would be useful if we could get them to add some actual flood photos of folks canoeing and kayaking 99W in 1996. And this is from Bob Hughes, who says, my daughter and I canoed to town from the little shopping center. So maybe Bob will provide you with those photos, David.
Yeah, if you have some, Bob, would love to see them. And yeah, I would love that. And I know that the Gazette Times had a bunch of photos from that. They hired an airplane and flew over and took a ton of pictures. I don't know. I presume they're in their archives now. That's a good idea because people cannot visualize this. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, this is Justin Bryce. Just wanted to thank you for that great presentation. And I'm curious if there's been any wildlife or biological surveys done along the mill race, and if there's any, documentation.
There probably is. The only one I'm aware of was Karen Hans from ODFW, or this Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, did an informal survey of fish, came up, did a little shocking in one place, and came up with 3 native species and I believe 3 non-native species of fish. I believe that was in, I'd have to look, I think it was in October. So October is one of those funny times. I don't know whether it was real dry or starting to be wet again. So that's the only one I'm aware of. We would like to have aquatic, an inventory, both aquatic and terrestrial, of that area. And I can tell you the timing is everything on this because it's not a stream, it's a waterway of sorts, which needs to be defined in some strange way. And sometimes there's a lot of water, and if we could do something during flooding, it'd be even more interesting to see what kind of a refuge it truly is.
So David,
yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Here's a question from Counselor Napak. Thank you for being here. She says, can you expand on the federal floodplain regulatory changes you mentioned earlier?
Actually, I can't. I read that. I just briefly read part of the proposal about 2 months ago, and I haven't looked at it again since, but what really jumped out at me was that they really want to change course on just giving money out to people to rebuild in floodplains. That was my personal biggest takeaway, that they want that era to end. That people maybe can get, for something already there, they can get maybe some funding, but they're not allowed to rebuild in floodplains. That will be a huge change. So I would recommend talking to the planning department in the city and asking about those Oregon plans that are being worked with FEMA on that.
All right, David, the questions are starting to come.
Okay.
Now, what is the status of the hydrologist fish and flooding study, and how can we help with that?
Well, there is none right now. So anybody wants to help us get it started. We have to have, so just email me and we'll start cogitating on whether, what kind of funding we need to raise, who we can have do it, who will do it. We have so many people here in Corvallis who can do such a study. This is probably one of the best places in the country to be, to have somebody do a study such as this. So yeah, contact me. We'll start a list and get it going.
So here's another question. I'm interested in connectivity in South Corvallis between east and west. Would the proposed Greenway crossing at Highway 99 have red light signals or other safety features?
Yeah, another good question is that no, the concept, the only thing that we are proposing here, and we're not proposing a whole 99W proposal. This is really just along the mill race. So we're proposing a wider mill race leading up to 99 on both sides, and the crossing is under a new bridge, not the same bridge, but a new bridge that arches over and is a wider bridge, much wider bridge, and allows a crossway under the bridge, just like we do over on the Marys River, at the proper height and all the safety features to go under the pathway. So you don't have, there's no stopping. You don't have to cross the road at all. We want at least one passage across 99, and we want it near the mill race where people do not cross 99 and traffic doesn't have to stop there.
So when you're talking about a bridge, it is a bridge for car traffic. It
Exactly.
is not a bridge for bicyclists, pedestrians, and so on.
Right. There have been proposals for a pedestrian bridge, but that's not this proposal.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be. I mean, this is just a proposal. That's all it is.
Yeah. So it's 1 o'clock, but there are a couple more questions.
Let's go. If you can go the longer net, let's go.
Okay. Just lost that one. What is the thinking regarding redirecting the storm drains? This is the low point for those drains most of the time.
Good point. Okay, the concepts, and we talked with the landscape architects from ODOT, the consultants, about this, is you inhibit the water getting to this point. So you start upstream, in this case, near the Marys River, near Chapman, and near Kiger Island, 1.5 miles away to the south. And you start redirecting that water into swales and other stormwater facilities. So it isn't flowing in one pipe all the way down to the low point. So the only water that would be gathered would be the water that comes into the mill race from storm drains would be just right next to the mill race and not 1/2 mile away or 1.5 miles away. That would significantly reduce that amount of water, and it would significantly reduce the up storm drain flooding, meaning the backing up. I hope that made sense.
Next, the ODOT new bridge most likely will not happen. But what about a pedestrian bridge instead?
Well, that's another option, and that could happen. It will need a lot of space. I have seen pedestrian bridges built over, and they require a lot of land, and that would be possible. But it's, we're just throwing this concept out for the corridor, and let's see where it goes. If a bridge over 99 is better, that would be fine. Let's just see where this goes. And you're right that it would need a lot of pressure to make a road bridge happen. But keep in mind, we have to solve the flooding. And a pedestrian bridge would not solve the flooding.
Next question. How strong is the resistance to extending the Greenway south in private property?
Well, it's private property and nobody's asked. So I don't want to call it resistance. It hasn't been a discussion really, and but there is no right of way at all there right now. So if anybody knows the owners, you can ask them. But I just haven't gone there, and I just think that we need to start where it's go for the low hanging fruit first.
All right, let's end